When you think of the 1950s, you think of classic cars, vintage wear, soda fountains, and the American dream. But when it comes to trucks, not everything was a hit. Though the 50s had its share of renowned pickup trucks, it also gave us some trucks that had us puzzled. Let's take a trip back to the 50s and check out a few of these vehicles. And make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more videos like this. First up is the 55 Dodge C-Series trucks. They introduced modern styling, but the design suffered from several shortcomings. The build quality was inconsistent, often resulting in fit and finish issues like uneven panel gaps and poor sealing against the elements. The truck's steering system was notably heavy, which combined with its bulky frame made it difficult to handle, particularly in tight spaces. The suspension was stiff, leading to a bumpy, uncomfortable ride on uneven roads. The 55 Dodge trucks looked sharp, but their reliability? Not so much. With too many mechanical issues, you'd spend more time fixing than driving. Next up, we have the 58 Chevrolet Apache 31. The Apache 31 was a stunner in its day, but it handled like a lumbering ox. Style points aside, it was a truck that promised more than it could deliver. While the truck stood out with its bold styling and robust engine options, it had its share of flaws. The most common complaint was its tendency to rust, particularly in the cab corners, floorboards, and fenders. Its drum brakes were inadequate for stopping quickly under heavy loads, which posed a safety risk. Also, the truck's suspension, while capable of light work, struggled with larger payloads, resulting in a rough ride. Next up, we have the 59 GMC 100. You'd think GMC would bring the muscle, but the 59 GMC 100 had weak brakes and a steering system that felt more like a suggestion than a command. It shared much of its design with the Chevrolet Apache and had some distinct faults. Like the Chevrolet counterpart, rust was a persistent issue, with body panels corroding quickly in wetter climates. Ride quality was also a regular problem because the suspension was too stiff for comfortable daily use. The truck's fuel efficiency was poor, especially with the optional Pontiac-derived V8 engine. It was also observed that the manual transmission could be old-fashioned, heavy, and difficult to operate, particularly when hauling heavy loads. And what's the use of a truck if it can't carry a heavy load? By the way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content. Next up, we have the 53 Studebaker 2R. Studebaker had a reputation for being unique, but the 2R was uniquely frustrating. It had an awkward design choice and an uninspiring engine. It just couldn't keep up with the competition. It had a forward-thinking design but suffered from several drawbacks. Its cab-forward configuration was innovative, but it made the ride uncomfortably noisy and exposed drivers to engine heat. Parts availability was also a major issue, even when the truck was new, as Studebaker's smaller production scale meant fewer replacement parts were available. And its relatively high cost compared to competitors also limited its market appeal. Not only was the truck faulty, it was expensive. Studebaker exited the truck market in the 60s, marking the end of its automotive ventures. Next up is the 56 International Harvester series. International Harvester made workhorses, but the 56 series felt more like overworked ponies. International Harvester's 56 truck series was durable, but its faults couldn't go unnoticed. The suspension system was exceedingly stiff, making the ride harsh and uncomfortable even on relatively smooth roads. The truck's basic interiors lacked amenities, and International Harvester's dealer network for light trucks was less developed than Ford or Chevrolet, which hindered maintenance and parts availability. Additionally, the trucks were criticized for poor fuel economy. Its underpowered engines and stiff ride kept the truck from shining. Next up, the 51 Ford F1. The Ford F1 was iconic, but this particular model wasn't its finest hour. It was prone to rust and mechanical hiccups, and it demanded constant attention. It had notable flaws even though it was popular. Its body panels got rusted easily, especially the floorboards and cab corners, a common issue for trucks of this era. The flathead V8 engine, while powerful, required frequent maintenance to avoid overheating. The brakes, which were all drum, offered poor stopping power, especially when the truck was fully loaded. These trucks had good innovations, but the low build quality made them look like a rushed and unplanned project. And now we have the 55 Chevrolet Task Force. Chevy's Task Force series looked great, but struggled with overheating and reliability issues. The 55 model introduced sweeping lines, a wraparound windshield, and a small block V8. It offered advanced features for its time, such as power steering and power brakes, but some features weren't just developed right. The brakes were underpowered for a truck that was often used to carry heavy loads, leading to longer stopping distances. The suspension provided a rough ride on uneven surfaces, and the steering was vague, making it difficult to control at high speeds. The trucks were stylish, no doubt, but a pretty face doesn't always get the job done. Next up, the 58 Dodge Power Wagon. The Power Wagon was supposed to be rugged, but by 58, it felt outdated. The wagon was a continuation of Dodge's tough, military-inspired trucks. It was known for its off-road prowess and robust design, and it featured a 230 cubic inch inline-six engine. Its inline-six engine, though reliable, was underpowered for the truck's weight, resulting in slow acceleration and low top speeds. The suspension was designed for extreme durability, but this made the ride incredibly harsh and uncomfortable for daily driving. The cabin was basic with minimal insulation from noise and weather. How did a truck with such great features end up with a slow speed and stiff ride? You've got to ask the engineers of the 50s. Next up, the 54 International Harvester R110. This truck had peculiar looks but lacked the guts to back it up. The R110 was a workhorse truck with a strong inline-six engine and a simple, rugged design. It had both design and performance limitations. The interior was extremely basic, so it wasn't exactly convenient or comfortable. The manual transmission was difficult to operate smoothly, particularly for inexperienced drivers, and like other International Harvester trucks, its parts were rarely available, making repairs more challenging. Sales were low because nobody wants to buy a problematic truck that's difficult to fix. Hey, if you're still riding with us and haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button for more videos like this. Next up, the 55 Ford F100. The Ford F100 is a classic now, but at the time, its poor suspension and lack of durability made it a headache for hardworking drivers. The 55 F100 was a significant improvement over earlier models, but still had its flaws. The brakes, though slightly improved, were still not sufficient for heavy roads. The steering was unrefined, requiring considerable effort during tight turns. The truck's high cost of ownership due to frequent maintenance discouraged buyers on a budget. It had to have frustrated some drivers because it was expensive and didn't perform well. Next up is the 58 Chevrolet Viking. The Chevrolet Viking promised big things but delivered a bouncy, uncomfortable ride instead. It was designed as a medium-duty truck, but it had its share of limitations. Its manual steering was heavy, especially when fully loaded. The brakes were inadequate for the truck's size and intended use. Viking's large size and turning radius made it difficult to maneuver in urban areas. Bigger isn't always better. Finally, number one on our list is the 58 Dodge D100, a truck with poor build quality and endless mechanical issues. The D100 was a member of the C-Series and featured updated styling with a distinctive swept side bed option. It had numerous faults. Its build quality was inconsistent, with reports of panel gaps and poorly fitted components. The manual steering was heavy and difficult to use, particularly in tight spaces. Suspension tuning prioritized load capacity over ride quality, resulting in a stiff and bumpy driving experience. Dodge's light trucks eventually evolved into the popular Ram series, leaving the D100 name behind. So much for updated styling. Now that's a wrap on the trucks that didn't quite live up to the 50s golden reputation. They may have had style, but fell short on reliability. If you think we're too hard on any of these pickups or we missed a truck, drop your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more videos. See you in the next one.